On today's episode of Locked On 76ers, 3 more games left. Miami tonight at home, the last game, fan appreciation night at the center, and the 76ers have a game to play against this team that they can lock in their opponent for the Eastern Conference first round matchup. Who would that be? Why? It's a pretty good matchup for both teams. Maybe. We'll get into it next right here, Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, you are Locked On 76ers. I'm Devon Givens from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio in Philadelphia, alongside my co-host and partner, as always, from theinquirer.com, Sixers beat writer, Keith Pompey. What's up, Keith?
What's poppin', D? How you doing, bro?
Doing all right, man. It's Thursday. We got here pretty fast, actually, late in the week. Got here pretty quickly. We get here later in the week, couple of games left, front end of a back-to-back, so we'll see how important this game is tonight versus what the Sixers do tomorrow. Thank you, everybody, for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On 76ers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including on all platforms right here, YouTube, Locked On 76ers. Good folks, we got to get into the possibility of tonight locking in the Sixers' first round opponent, which would maybe be the Brooklyn Nets if the Sixers defeat the Miami Heat tonight. We'll get into that. We'll also get into what the Sixers should do after this game, should they win or lose. We'll get into that a little bit later, and the keys to the game as well for the Sixers and the Heat, 7:30 start time. National TV once again, live from South Philadelphia. But Keith, Brooklyn won last night in Detroit. They took down the Detroit Pistons. They are now a game and a half up on the Miami Heat. Should the Miami Heat lose to the Sixers tonight, with the Brooklyn Nets being idle tonight, back on the floor tomorrow to host the Orlando Magic, the Brooklyn Nets will have a full 2 games up on them with 1 game to play. 2 games to play for both teams tomorrow night. Sixers look like, if that's the case, man, they are going to play the Brooklyn Nets. So your first thoughts, your initial thoughts on the Sixers and the Nets, especially since this is, while they have faced them already, the new look Nets, this is looks like this could be their first round matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, a lot of people, remember when I did the poll on Twitter, and it was like 70-something% of the 76ers fans or people who participated in the poll wanted the Sixers to play the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets are a young team. It's a team that you expect the Sixers to win. You just do. You look at Mikal Bridges. He's an emerging young star in this league. I expect him to be an all-star next year, one of the best two-way players. However, I think that they just don't have enough when it comes down to the Sixers, and a lot of that has to do with Joel Embiid. I don't see them having anyone out there that can defend them, and I do believe that that's going to be their first round opponent. The Nets, Brooklyn has to crumble and just fall flat apart these last 2 games in order for them not to make it, right? So I think that's the matchup we're going to see. Is an ideal matchup for the Sixers, but at the same time is a matchup that they have to come in and respect these young guys, because Brooklyn has nothing to lose. I mean, this is a team where you look at it. We talked about Mikal Bridges. They have him, and they could build with. They have his best friend, Cam Johnson, a pretty good shooter. They have some other guys that they picked up that are really good, but they have a plethora of draft picks. So this roster that we're looking at right now is going to be probably different next year. But with that being said, you have to respect those guys because they're winners and they want to win. They want to knock off the Sixers. That's what they want to do.
Yeah, the message that will be going in there from Jacques Vaughn is probably, hey, like you just said, first of all, we have nothing to lose. Nobody's expecting us to defeat the Sixers in any 7-game series. Just go out there and play basketball, execute, and let the chips fall where they may. As far as the other side with the Miami Heat, you look at them as a possible opponent while they're still technically alive for that 6th seed. You know what you're getting from them. You're getting some veteran play from Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, Bam Adebayo now, even though a young player, he's been around long enough where you know exactly what you're going to get, Tyler Hero, et cetera. And then they have those other players, Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, who we've seen give the Sixers problems as early as far as postseason goes, last season in the second round, where they knocked the Sixers off in 6 games. So you know what you're getting from them, and you know how difficult it was then, even though they haven't had a great season this year. It's a tougher first round matchup than you would expect from the Brooklyn Nets, who aren't necessarily there yet. The way they put things together following the trade and throwing this team together. You mentioned those 2 players to start off: Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, Nick Claxton. As you talk about defending Joel Embiid, Claxton has had some decent games against Joel Embiid, but we know throughout a full series and the big fella just leaning on him the way that he would and has the ability to get those players in foul trouble. That will be something, of course, that Brooklyn is going to have to try to manage in a big way and not allow that to really get in their way when it comes to trying to defeat the Philadelphia 76ers. So right now, that looks to be the one. And as you said, when you put out that poll a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't surprised to see the results, because you always look at the team that you feel is the lesser opponent. And right now, right, even though Brooklyn is in front of Miami in the standings, and at that time they were in front of Miami in the standings, you still look at Brooklyn because there's no Durant and there's no Irving, but they are going to battle. They are a tough team where they're going to battle. They're not going to quit. They just continue to rotate players in. Now Deron Sharp is getting some minutes at the backup position, a little bit more, a little bigger body. So it's going to be one that I expect a lot of Sixer fans to feel like, number one, you're going to sweep the team, or if not, you're going to win in 5. But there will be a tough matchup because they will not quit on you in that series. Sorry.
Yeah, and also the one thing is the one thing that you're not saying. The reason why they want Brooklyn also is because they don't want them to face Jimmy Butler in the first round. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Or just the simple fact that they are a veteran team with him at the head of it, with Lowry and then another all-star and Bam Adebayo. You know that Tyler Hero can go off at any minute, et cetera. And they're very well coached from Eric Spoelstra, versus when you look at what Jacques Vaughn is still, while he's a veteran coach in this league as a head coach, still has some things to prove as a head coach as he gets another opportunity since the last time we saw him with the head job in Orlando, et cetera. So this looks like what it's going to be. I expect the Sixers to win this game tonight also, because they basically get to choose their opponent. If they knock off Miami tonight, then they pretty much solidify that first round matchup against the Brooklyn Nets. So there's that. Coming up next, we also need to talk about, should they win this game tonight, what the approach should be going against Miami on Friday in the second night of a back-to-back. And then, as we spoke about the Brooklyn Nets, the final regular season opponent in Brooklyn on Sunday. We'll get into that next right here on Locked On 76ers. And I have to tell you about my good people at Ibotta. Groceries, school shopping, and getting a little something for yourself. How about that? You know you're already doing it, so why not get some cash back for it with Ibotta? Yes, you can earn cash back on every shopping trip. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods. I'm a big sweet tooth type of person. I need my snacks in the kitchen. Well, you either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop, and you get your cash back. It's that easy, especially when I buy so many, treats for myself: chips, cakes, pretzels, ice cream, my kids too. It's not just me. Whatever it is, I do that. The average Ibotta user earns $120 a year in real cash back. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip. Or you could use your cash back to buy that flight you've been eyeing in the summer. You might want to use it that way to kind of cut the cost a bit and make you feel a little better, like you're not actually spending all of the money. That game you're dying to go to. How about that one in the postseason, or the fancy dinner you've been craving? You can earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKED when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKED. That's IBOTTA. Again, that's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKED, again, for Ibotta. Welcome back, Locked On 76ers. Thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen. For your next, check out the Locked On Now podcast for nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. The season is winding down, so make sure you get in there. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Lots of plenty of games on the schedule, so make sure you jump on in there. All right, Keith, if the Sixers win tonight against Miami, they will have 53 wins on the season, 53-27 with 2 games to play. Second night of a back-to-back in Atlanta tomorrow, where they are locked into a play-in tournament. But seeding, I think, is still important for them as far as the play-in tournament, whether it be 7, 8, 9, somewhere around there. What do you do? Do you continue to play these players, or do you sit a majority of these players, specifically James Harden and Joel Embiid?
I'm sitting both of them. I mean, it's like to a point. I mean, especially those two. I mean, it's unfortunate that, I shouldn't say it's unfortunate. Like Matt McClung and the G League team are playing in the championship. So
it might be over by tonight.
It could be over by tonight, but, if they win. But to me, I'm getting those, if so, they're hopping on a flight from Texas and going straight to Atlanta, and guess what? Y'all playing. You know what I mean? We're gonna play y'all because I mean, even if the Sixers lose, I mean, I'm thinking about doing that. Like seriously, if the Sixers lose tonight, and I don't know if Joel and James are hopping on that plane, and maybe they hop on the plane. Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll hop on the plane to just give their teammates some support, and then we can give them some treatment and stuff like that. But for the most part, like I feel like, these are one guy. James has an Achilles problem that he's been battling through. Joel has the foot, the calf, a whole bunch of other things. There's no need to play him again. Now I get it. This is fan appreciation night, so you want them to play.
You play tonight.
You play tonight, and I understand that. But outside of that, like they're stars. Everyone's not like Mikal Bridges, who wants to play every game, and you got to commend them for that. You really do, especially in this era. But I think that you shut these two guys down, and a guy, even a guy like Jalen McDaniels, who's been dealing with the hip, unless if he has a problem with that, it's one of those things where you may play him one of the games, but you're not going to play him in both of them. It's just one of those things. I think that when we look at this Sixers team, comparable to Boston and Milwaukee, they're just not as deep. So they need all their guys to be healthy and playing at a high level. And right now, the record doesn't mean anything. If they win tonight, they'll have 53 wins, which will be the most wins that they had in the regular season since the 2000-2001 season. Mm-hmm. So they already are ahead of everything else that they've done since that in the regular season. So I feel like shut them down.
Yeah, I wouldn't play him either, especially if those 2 games now missed wouldn't bother Embiid, wouldn't matter for Embiid in terms of the individual award that we're always talking about. Those 2 games don't mean anything. Sit him. And the reason why you played tonight, number 1, fan appreciation night. And then number 2, after everything that Doc Rivers talked about post-game after they defeated the Celtics on Tuesday, Keith, you still want to come out there and at least perform better before you step into that week off for the playoffs. You want to get some better film out there for yourselves to look at, to feel better about, because that performance as a unit wasn't that great on Tuesday, even though you picked up that win by 2 over the Celtics the other day. So having the team out there playing together one more time, meshing a little bit better, having a little more chemistry out on the floor where you get better results from your reserves. George Niang, DeAnthony Melton not shooting well enough in that last game, both 0-4 in that one. I believe they were 0-7 combined in that game. Then you have Maxey and Tobias Harris. They need to play better tonight against Miami before they take a seat and rest for the rest of the regular season. Now, look, they can go into the playoffs and both drop 30 in game one against the Brooklyn Nets in about 10 days. They probably could, but the last thing that we saw, that wasn't all that pretty. So I would like to see them get out there tonight and play a little bit better together before they step away and take the remainder of the regular season off.
Yeah, I agree.
And yeah, a lot of Jaden Springer on Sunday. A lot.
Yeah, a lot. I'm talking about running plays for my man, everything. Let's see.
Furkan going nuts for 30.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see. We'll see. Well, listen, on the other side, man, we got to give our keys to the game. And that's something that we always do on a game day. We give our keys to the game. Sixers and Heat, 3 games left. This one, fan appreciation tonight. It's the regular season home finale. Tonight, 2 games remaining on the road. Atlanta Friday, Brooklyn on Sunday. We'll give our keys to tonight's game against the visiting Miami Heat. We'll do that next right here in the final segment on Locked On 76ers.
The NBA playoffs are almost here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 on bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com locked on. That's FanDuel.com locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Welcome back to Locked On 76ers. Sixers and Heat tonight at the center as the 76ers have fan appreciation night in South Philadelphia. It should be cool to have all the fans in there and reward them for everything, really, right? You know, all they've done all season long. And listen, I got to tell you that it's been a fun season. It really has for me. Cleveland plays tonight. The Sixers play tonight. Those are the games that matter. If you care about Denver and Nikola Jokic, they play tonight as well. But as far as things go, the Sixers at 52-27, Miami 42-37. They're 16-23 on the road. They have not yet clinched a play-in because of the possibility of still being able to get that number 6 seed. Brooklyn winning last night in Detroit. Keith, what are you looking at here as far as the keys to the game? The Miami Heat have won 2 games in a row. They have won 6 of their last 10. How are you seeing this one play out for the 76ers? And by the way, Miami cannot move below Atlanta. It doesn't look like it, at least, even though Atlanta's won 3 in a row. They have a game and a half up on Atlanta, and the Sixers play the Hawks tomorrow. Possibility they could fall to 8th, but I'd imagine they would try their very best not to fall to 8th, so they can host that play-in game with them and the Hawks and just win that game and move on to the playoffs. What are you seeing for keys tonight?
You know, the keys basically is I think they got to show better effort than they did the last time Miami came here. And they did that when 2 days later, I believe it was 2 days later when they went. Yeah, it was 2 days later when they went to Miami. And they showed a lot of effort, played with a lot of heart. I think it all boils down to, if James Harden. You know, that game he was out there distributing the rock, but also the Sixers bench played much better. And Jimmy Butler wasn't as effective that game. I don't know if it was anything the Sixers did or he just had a bad game, but it just seemed like, you know, he just wasn't the dominant guy. So to me, when you look at Jimmy and you look at the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler is the head of the snake. Also, they got a lot of guys who can make shots. And for whatever reason, the first game they were making a bunch. The second game, the Sixers kind of limited the shots that they were making. Like these, they're talking about their role players. So to me, you got to shut down Jimmy Butler. You got to do a really good job on him to take out the head of the snake. But then also play better perimeter D. You got to make sure that Tyler Hero and all these other guys don't get Max Sturgis. They don't get their shots off against you. So I think those are the two keys that I have that the 76ers have to do.
For me, it's just really about themselves. You would have to hope that they went into the locker room after the game, and as what Doc Rivers talked about post game, and just simply, even though they got the win, did not like their performance. So even though the Miami Heat are tough, Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Max Strus, Bam Adebayo, everybody that you just mentioned, it's really about them going out there and executing and wanting to play better than what they did the other night. And I think that's the big key for me for the entire thing, that they just want to go out there and execute the game plan much better and get Tyrese Maxey back involved in this offense, because that was not him of what we saw. It's him against Boston, Keith. He's averaging 10 points on the season against the Boston Celtics in the 4 games, shooting 35%, under 20% from behind the 3-point line. And he's only getting to the free throw line one time against the Celtics. But against the Miami Heat, he has played better. So we'll see if he can get that going. I'd imagine that he wants to play better than what he did. So I would say for themselves, go out there and just simply execute the game plan much better and have some pride against this team based on what you saw in the last game, where I'm sure they had pride, but that stuff started to go out the window when they just couldn't do anything. And Embiid with the 52, the team entirely combined 51. And then Tyrese Maxey, he has to be somebody that they get back on track tonight for the start of the playoffs in about 10 days. And then the other part too is this: while it's Fan Appreciation Night, Keith, they will pick up their 30th home win tonight if they win. And that's important, that you win that many games at home, especially knowing that you're trying to establish home court in the playoffs. Number one against the Brooklyn Nets or the Miami Heat in the first round. And then in the second round, if you're lucky enough to move past that first round, whomever you play between Boston and their first round opponent, you want to make sure, again, that you let them know that despite what may happen on the road, in Boston's case, when you come back here to Philadelphia, even though you won game 3, the point spread that separated the two teams in those games 3 and 4 was 5 points. So that's what you also want to make sure that you do. You get back on track at home, get the 30 wins, and do that in front of your home base.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, listen, man, we thank everybody for making Locked On 76ers your first listen. And tomorrow we will get together to recap this one, look ahead to the Atlanta Hawks game as the second night of a back-to-back, see who's playing, who's not playing, and maybe we're talking about win number 53 on the campaign for this basketball team. Once again, now make your second listen Locked On NBA, Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the league every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Keith, can you let the good folks know where they can find us?
Like my man D said, wherever you get that podcast, make sure you get this podcast. We're free and available. You can also get us on our YouTube channel. And when you go to the YouTube channel, what you do is you just click on the Liberty Bell. And then next thing you know, when you click on the Liberty Bell, you become a new subscriber. And then also what you do is after you do that, you would also get notifications of when we do things. Now tonight, before you check out stuff and after you watch the game and whatnot, make sure you listen to my man Devon Givens from 10:30 to midnight, right? 10:30 to midnight on the Devon Givens show, and it's going to be from the arena. So he's going to give live from the arena. So he's going to give you some, a recap of what happens. We'll talk about some other things the next step. Also, after you get done that, make sure you follow me on not Twitter, but on Enquirer.com to see what some of the recaps or read the Enquirer's recap. But also, before you do that, y'all, before you do so that, make sure you follow my man Devon G on Twitter. Do that. As soon as you get done with this podcast, make sure you follow Devon on Twitter at Devon G975. Devon G975. Follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers, right? And then, of course, make sure we're both going to be at the arena. So afterwards, we're going to do our podcast. And then after that, what you guys can do is make sure, listen to it first thing tomorrow morning.
First thing in the morning. First thing in the morning. You got to get ready for the Sixers and the Hawks with Shake Milton starting with Furkan Korkmaz tomorrow. That's it. All right. Keith, as always, we appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching. We'll talk to you tomorrow following Sixers and the Heat, getting you ready for Sixers Hawks on Friday night. Thanks, everybody.
Peace.